Alright, definitely time to save this. File, save as. You'll save it as a flash file, which is .fla. I'll save it as 01. I like to save different versions as I go, so in case I mess something up, I can always go back. Alright, I'll show you some of the other drawing tools now. I'll make another layer here. Call it, I can use the, let's see, why don't we work with one of the shape tools. If you go over here, you'll see a rectangle tool, R. And anytime you see this little black triangle at the bottom of a tool, that means you can click and hold down on it, and you've got different options for those tools. So I'll use the oval tool here. And now you can see where the pencil, the stroke color comes in. What this is going to do, it says, well, I'm going to make an oval with a black outline and a yellow fill. And it's really easy to change those colors, so I'm going to say, okay, that sounds good. And I'll just go ahead. Actually, before I, I'll zoom back out. So I'll use M for magnifying glass, hold down the Option key and zoom out by clicking once. Then I'll grab the oval tool and I'll just drag across like that. And I've got a nice oval there. Now I'll get the selection tool, and one of the things you'll notice is that it treats the fill and the stroke as different objects. So if I grab the fill and move it, it leaves the stroke behind. And if I drag the fill on top of the stroke, well, it actually doesn't care. Oh yeah, there it goes. It'll cut the stroke up, which is kind of funky. So I'll undo that a few times. Alright, undo. Okay, there we go. So in order to select both the stroke and the fill, I need to either double click the fill, and then the stroke gets selected as well, and now I can move them both together. Undo. I can also double click the stroke. No, I can't. Is that working? No, double clicking the stroke doesn't work. You got to double click the fill to get both the fill and the stroke. Or what I can do is make what's called a group, and groups are super handy. You go up here to modify group, and the shortcut for that is Command G. Do that, and it puts this bounding box around this. And now, if I click on it, it always reads that as a grouped object. It won't let me, and if I try to erase it like that, it'll just laugh at me. Haha, you can't erase me. If I did want to erase it, I would have to go up here to modify, I have to select it first, select the group, modify ungroup, and now we're back to having these separate pieces. And then I could, for instance, change the fill color if I wanted to. A few steps back here. So groups are very handy, very flexible, and they're nice for keeping objects together. That they have to be in the same layer to really work properly. So now I have this excellent tableau here. And the other thing you can do is change the stroke to be thicker. So right now it seems pretty thin. So what I'm going to do is you can also, instead of ungrouping it, this is kind of cool. Let me step back here. When you've got a group, if I double click on the group, it brings me into group editing mode. Let me show you how that works. If you notice up here in the upper left hand corner of your screen it says Scene 1. What that means is that's where you are in terms of what you're editing. You're editing this scene out here. But when I double click on this, it says, aha, now you're in that group and you're editing just in the group. And so if I take all this and move it, you'll see that everything else in the scene is grayed out, and you can't get to it, and so you're just editing what's in the symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to single click on this to select the stroke, and I can just go over here when I've got my properties window open and just cruise around in the slider to change the stroke width. Then when I'm done editing my group, all I have to do is double click anywhere off of the content of the symbol. So double click, and I'm back to scene 1. Now I'll unlock the line layer. I'll just click and drag over everything in there. I'll hold down Q, actually not hold it down, just click it once to get free transform going. And then I'm just going to scale this whole thing down. And there we go. And maybe I'll go in, that stroke seems a little much now. Kind of take that down a little bit, double click, there we go. And maybe I'll go back in and change the color of the stroke. So the color of the stroke is whatever the pencil says over here. So right now it's black, so I can pick a different color. There we go. So you'll see that the other shape tools work very similarly to that. So you've got a stroke and you've got a fill. If you don't want a stroke or a fill, you can just use the null, nothing here. So now I'll just create the outline, but without anything inside of it. And yeah, there we are. Exciting stuff. So to change that stroke, I just had, oh, and this is what I said about double clicking. So right now, when I made this rectangular stroke, it actually does 4 separate strokes and lays them on top of each other, which is a little odd. But it can be handy, it's good to know that. So in order to change all these strokes at once, if I just click this once and choose a different stroke color, it'll only change one of the strokes. So to get all 4 of those selected at once, this is where you use your double click on the stroke, and then it'll select everything that's touching, and then you can switch them all at once. And this is where I would definitely, if I was going to do much more with this, I'd probably group it, Command G, and now it'll just, I don't have to grab all 4 strokes at once, it'll just take them as one. Ungroup it, Command G again, or Command Shift G, sorry, whatever that was. Ungroup, yeah, Command Shift G. There we go. And I can move the strokes individually. Alright, that's enough of that. So in a second we'll talk more about a couple other drawing tools, then we'll get into symbols.